owned a condo at Aurora downtown, which is College and Young, right?
Aura.
Yeah, Aurora, not Aurora. You confused me. I was like, no, it's like
downtown Aurora. I'm like, I've never been to downtown Aurora.
Lead us in, Kenny. Lead us in.
All right, man.
Scotty Barnes.
Second episode of the 5-Star podcast. We made it, guys. So we have a new addition. We have Richard here. Richard Lamb from Remax Crossroads.
That's right,
Okay.
Richard Lamb.
Welcome.
Welcome, right? So we have the usual. My
First
name is
time,
Kenny.
first
This
time.
is Woody, Richard, Rod, Steve, Winston.
Yeah.
All right. And we talk about all things Toronto real estate. Right. So fresh off the press, first news of the day,
Quarter rate hike by Bank of Canada.
just raised 2 hours ago.
That's right. Yeah. What do you guys think?
I'll give my feedback. I think this is very good news. I think this is very bullish. I'm usually very bearish on the outlook, but because they raised it 0.25, but it's not. It's also not just that. It's because their guidance is actually really good. They're saying, okay, inflation numbers look good. The numbers are going in the right direction, and now we can stop. Okay, so chances are this is the last raise, and then it'll be fine. And then they're expecting the inflation to be normalized back to 2% in 2024 next year. Mm-hmm. So this is very good news, actually.
I agree. Yeah. No, I was actually just hearing the news that like, they were talking about like, well, like from what they're gonna do now, they're just gonna like see where it goes. If it stabilizes, they're not gonna like do any more raises or anything crazy, which is actually good. Like I mean, I just heard it on the news too, right?
We're heading in the right direction.
Yeah.
So what's the pulse, everyone? How's this gonna go to the moon or what? What's going on?
So don't you guys think that everyone's going to jump in now? If they see a stabilization in these rates, it's going to cause this massive jump. Everybody's on the sideline. Buyers, your buyers, my buyers, all our buyers have been on the sideline. So now it's going to stable off. Let's jump in. But what's the net effect of that, right? Multiple offers.
Multiple offers. It's happening already.
Well over asking, right?
Yeah.
So are there any contrarians among us that think that sales aren't just going to skyrocket and prices following them?
I think it depends on the property itself, though. Like, I mean, like, we're still not at that point where we can throw anything out there and, you know, get multiple offers with like how it was. You still got to like prep it. It's still got to be a quality over quantity at this point.
Mm-hmm. I think this time around, the buyers are proceeding, but with a little more caution because mainly because of the lenders, the higher rates, and the fear of a shortfall from an appraisal. That's a real concern for many people. Like, you know, if you can offer any price you want, but be prepared to be able to make up that shortfall. If the bank doesn't finance the full amount that you offer,
That's true.
They're not promoting like speculators, right?
So does that mean that for those among us, you're keeping the finance conditions in there for your clients, or at least letting them know the potential ramifications if they don't keep it in?
I think default though, I don't know. I can only speak on my behalf. We always recommend finance condition.
Absolutely.
And only if they, overturn our recommendation, then they're making an informed decision to do that. So they only the buyers can confirm about their finances with their mortgage brokers and banks, lenders. So that's where I stand.
Because if a buyer waives that condition, they have to be ready to handle the difference between their purchase price and what they're getting funded.
100%.
Right.
Yeah. They have to know the risks because there's always that risk. Like, we have to, like us as realtors, we have to explain to them the risk that, if they waive that condition and they go to the bank and the bank gives them any negative news, they got to be able to swallow that pill. Yeah. And they got to be like ready and willing to close whatever way possible. So.
Yeah, Woody, you're in the mortgage industry as well, right? As well as being in real estate. So what have you seen appraisals going in terms of getting the approval for these purchases for some of your clients?
Yes, definitely appraisals are It's always a case by case basis, but yes, appraisals are coming back down to earth as compared to before. You would get people would buy houses for astronomical prices, and actually the appraisals would be fitting those specs for a while because the previous house sold for an astronomical price. But yes, as a mortgage agent, definitely, we always recommend to keep in the financing condition, and unless you're cash rich. If you're cash rich and your realtor says this is a reasonable price for the property, and this is the price you get the property at, if you can handle the difference, go for it. Waive that condition, but just have that cash on hand.
Or some buyers may not even require a mortgage, so there won't be a need for any of that condition.
Absolutely.
Right.
But are you seeing shortfalls? Appraisals coming in lower right now?
Yes. Appraisals, house prices are normalizing right now, so they're coming back down to earth. So appraisals are more in line with the current purchase price. If we were to get back into a bidding war, which is a real concern, appraisals at the current rate may not meet the new purchase prices.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, talking about the interest rates and buyers coming back into the game or come back into the market. What about the sellers? How do you feel about the sellers? Because a lot of sellers are feeling that they're not going to get the number that they want, right? Do you think that this actually might help because it's going to stabilize now? Do you think that actually might help out the sellers thinking that, okay, well, we can get that value that we want for our house now?
I think like with that question is kind of like there's different perspectives. So you have to see what is motivating that seller to sell in the first place. Like, are they just trying to cash out, or are they trying to move up, or are they trying to move down? Like, depending on the client itself, like if they're basically moving 1-to-1, they don't care. As long as they can get something, or if they can upgrade to a certain like size within a certain budget, they're okay with it.
As they say, sell high, buy high, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that the client's expectations can't be 2021, right?
Yeah.
Because they still have that. You go to a listing presentation, like, I want this price. Yeah, that was in 2021.
Yeah.
That was 2 years
Yeah.
ago, right? Not today, right? So it's about setting the expectations from the get-go,
Yeah.
letting them know that, okay, if the prices go up, we'll see the trends, and we'll price it accordingly, right? But it also depends on the product, like Winston was saying, right? If you've got a gem in an amazing, incredible area, that's recession-proof.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Agreed.
Right?
definitely.
You're getting multiple offers, right? So
Yeah, for sure. But hey, Woody, we were actually just kind of talking about like lenders. They were looking at like realistic prices today. I don't know. Like I've been noticing like a lot of assignment sales lately, where I don't know when they bought it, but then they're just like kind of like, hey, you know what? We bought it for let's say originally $600K for a condo. I'm gonna sell it for $600K. So they're selling at a loss because they still got to pay out commission. Why do you think that is?
I'll defer that to the other realtors on this panel, but one warning I do have is just because you're buying an assignment sale for the same price or slightly less than the original purchaser bought it for, doesn't mean your appraisal may come in at that pre-con purchase price. And I've seen that.
Yeah.
So some individuals went private mortgages because they needed to close ASAP, and they figured, I'll arrange the standard financing afterwards, and they were not ready for the rude awakening because the market started to come down to earth, and then their appraisals were no longer at the price they purchased it for.
Yeah, the shortfall is not for resale anymore. It's also inclusive of a pre-construction.
So back to Winston's question, does anybody have any comments regarding why assignments are selling at a loss?
Yeah, because when they purchased it a couple years ago, the rates were low, and now they can't close because the rates are high. If they're investors, it doesn't make any sense from a cash flow perspective, right?
So they would cut their losses down.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, because mortgage payments are doubled, and the rent does not even cover that.
Rents have gone up, but I don't think they would cover the interest rates, right? So
No.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, also because the fact that the buyers or the people who are buying these properties initially with pre-con, they may be on variable on their own home mortgage, and now that their variable is actually being like raised significantly, they can't really afford to have another mortgage on a pre-construction project that they're about to close on. So therefore, I feel that a lot of these people have to sell due to the fact that they cannot afford to close on that property, or even can't even get a mortgage.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are getting squeezed from their mortgage for their own homes. But if they had plans for a succession plan, for if their children wanted to take over some of their properties, even they're not qualifying for these mortgages. So their plan A, plan B, plan C is kind of out the window. Now they gotta kind of plan for the worst and cut loose, like liquidate.
I've got some clients which are highly leveraged. They thought the good times were going to keep on rolling, and they had pre-construction closing every year or every other year. They were very aggressive in building their real estate portfolio.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're letting some go at cost or at a loss.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, even at cost means a loss because of the commissions.
Yeah.
Well, this is all assuming that everything goes well, and they totally avoid all the caps, like all the levies and the charges that the builder impose on buyers. Because if you've heard of some of the stories that buyers actually totally get a rude awakening on closing, where they're stuck with $100,000-$200,000 in order to close, and they only give you a window of 48 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Right? It could be a high-rise condo, but it could be low-rise as well.
Right.
So have you?
So yeah, actually, that's a good question for Woody. I mean, if you have a client like that, what would the best solution be if that was the case?
Sorry, which part?
Oh, like if they are running on a shortfall and they only have a 48-hour window.
I'd say never to get into that situation to begin with, to be honest. If you have to close in 48 hours, the private mortgage may be the quickest turnaround. Private mortgage can be handled in 24 to 48 hours. But really,
What's the rate on a private mortgage in sort of an emergency situation?
10 to 12% currently.
Wow. 10, can you imagine 10?
It's not that bad.
It's not that bad because
yeah.
like the regular bank rates are like 6 to 7% already.
Yeah.
Well, 3 more percent is a big difference for the average person, right?
You have to understand though that private mortgages are short-term solutions.
Yeah.
They're usually for 6 to 12 months. So it's either lose your deposits and possibly get sued by the builder because they may have to sell at a loss,
Right.
or take the short-term hit at 10-12% for a year, and you know what? Figure out a solution in 12 months.
But does the builder accept this sort of financing? Because don't they need a Schedule A bank?
No, usually some builders will ask for a
Pre-approval
pre-qualification,
mortgage commitment
pre-approval
or
letter
something like that, yeah,
when you first sign the documents.
Yes.
But as much as you want to close, the builder wants to close. So if you're giving them the money, cash is king.
So they'd rather close it versus taking your deposit?
You got it.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, because imagine what would happen if 50% of your buyers,
Oh, yeah.
you're gonna have to take back
Well,
that
they
inventory.
have to sell it again.
Yeah, they have to
So
resell it.
Yeah,
they're carrying it, right? So-
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
they're in big trouble.
At least
Yeah.
they're getting it from 2 lenders as opposed to going through court to get the same amount.
Right.
Yes.
Right, right.
That
It's the
drags
easiest, yeah, it's the path to least resistance.
Yeah.
And the builder would have to carry the property until then,
Right.
which is something they don't want either.
They don't get paid
Yeah.
while they're shelling out. So,
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. What about this? Have you guys come across pre-construction deals in your own portfolio with your clients where the builder now jacks up the price by $100,000 because they say they can't build it anymore, right? The cost has gone up, material, labor.
Yeah.
And so, what have examples around the table here of what you've done, what your clients have done to mitigate that loss or that risk, right, of losing it? Did they just fork over the $100,000, or where do they get that?
I think it's just you, man. I think it was just that one project.
We're not talking about any specific
We're not naming names.
Project
Edit that out.
shall remain nameless. But yeah, as I've heard too, during COVID, the price of lumber went up, some builders brought back to the buyers and said, the price of lumber's gone up and we had to charge you more. And some of these buyers had to fork out 40, 50 grand more to close.
100 even.
No, that's what I'm saying. 100 even, right? Like, so you do the financing on your end. How do you do that?
You just gotta do it somehow. Like as a buyer, I think like at that point you're so deep.
That 40, 50 grand can't go on your mortgage, so the buyer's stuck.
Yeah.
And you can't get a private on that 40, 50 grand unless the price of the property's gone up.
Right. Okay.
So early pandemic, yes, but nowadays,
I think it goes back to kind of buyers beware.
Yes.
The situation, buying pre-construction might not be the only solution or the safest solution. There is some risk and speculation aspect to it. I've coached some buyers to also bring this to light and also consider resale as something more reliable in this climate, especially with all the risk factors.
So what would you tell people today then if they were to want to buy pre-construction?
I'd say have 5 to 10% on the side for closing costs.
Emergency fund. Whatever
Yeah.
it is, yeah.
And think twice, run the numbers thoroughly.
Like I mean, like obviously closing at a higher rate kind of sucks, but if you look at it in a long game, like I mean, if you have that money kind of like set aside, obviously real estate's long game, right? You never want to be like, oh, I want to like buy it now, flip it in 5 years. Like that's not the plan. If you can buy it, hold it 5, 6, 7 years, you're gonna see some growth just because of like if you bought a good location, you bought a good building, it's gonna go up. It's still a good investment regardless of how nasty the closing could be. If main thing is if you can close, do it. Real estate's always a good thing.
It's good that you mentioned long term because I think long term we're okay. Especially the Bank of Canada, they announced like, okay, well, inflation's in control. We got it. Okay, so, but I still think I'm going to go against the grain here. I still think there's going to be some short term pain going forward.
I think so.
Because even some sellers who got mortgages like 2 or 3 years ago, those are coming due. They locked in at what,
renewals coming up, right?
1%, 2%, and now they're with this big surprise. What is it, 5% now? Yeah.
4.99 or something.
4.99,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, around there.
So
To 5.5 around
those
there.
sellers, if they can't afford to do payments, then they got to sell, right? So I still think there's going to be some negativity going forward, but long term, that's where I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's move on to that other topic we were supposed to explore. That was the fraud that happens in our industry, right? As realtors, and we see it.
Yeah, we're seeing it more and more
Yeah,
right
the
now.
title fraud.
Have you guys heard the story of the one last week where the student? That's another story. The student owned a condo at Aurora downtown, which is College and Young, right?
Aura.
Yeah, Aurora, not Aurora.
You confused me. I was like, no, downtown Aurora. I'm like, I've never been to downtown Aurora.
So she bought the condo in 2017.
Yeah.
And she went back to China for whatever reason and, assumed it's vacant.
Yeah.
And someone sold her condo without her knowing last year in May, right? So someone got access to her condo, went inside, staged it, took photos, hired 2 real estate agents, sold it. I think it was for $970,000. Yeah, this was at pretty much near the peak of the market, right?
But I mean, Aura's a great building still.
Yeah. But the fact that all this happened and even the lawyers were tricked.
Right.
And there was a bank in Montreal too.
The bank
Like
was
they
fooled as
done
well.
it with fraud documents, with fraud ID,
Oh boy.
right?
Wow.
So I don't know, man.
I mean, how does that happen?
How do we as a frontliner
Yeah.
kind of like mitigate this or try to like prevent this from happening?
I don't know.
Are there
It's
any
knowing
ways?
your buyer though, but like you don't really know, right? You can only do so much.
Well, I mean, we
To
can get a
really
cold
tell.
call.
Sure.
Like it could be a referral or whatever it may be.
Right.
And then-
so they were. She was successful in actually, or the person was successful in selling.
Yeah.
And they closed on it.
I believe so.
Yeah. Like a year later
Well,
too. She
Yeah.
came back.
She didn't find out too much later until her bank account wasn't deducting the maintenance fees anymore,
wow.
and that's when she noticed. So it did close.
Wow.
I mean, in a situation like that, doesn't title insurance cover you?
See, that's the thing, though.
From the actual transaction.
It should. It should.
being right.
Yeah, that's what title insurance is for. But keep this in mind. Like a couple days ago, they said there was another article about 30 more cases of this happening again.
Wow,
You know,
it's
so-
on the rise.
Definitely trending.
It's trending.
It can't be like just like title insurance. Like I'm sure like most lawyers now. So just to give a little bit of context, like whenever there's a closing, lawyers always suggest whether or not you want title insurance is always recommended by lawyers.
always.
By realtors, by lawyers, by everyone. But what like in these particular cases, what are we looking at here? Like, do they claim it back, or how do they get their money back, or how do they what happens then? Because there's
so
two victims here. There are two victims.
Does the original homeowner get their home back and the new buyer get their money back?
They should. That's what title insurance is for. But this is 30 cases reported, and that's only what we know of.
Yeah.
So
Right.
is this even sustainable? Like, how can the insurance companies even pay out this much if it's more rampant, right?
Yeah.
But they should. That's what it's for.
That's incredible.
Well, it's not just one insurer, so
Yeah, I think there's 4 big ones in Canada.
yeah.
Yeah.
Stewart Title is one of them.
Yeah, so as Ron was saying, I think we have to have some sort of extra security measures. Maybe perhaps lawyers maybe have two-factor authentication of some sort. So regulators have to come up a way to physically contact the homeowners rather than just the land titles office, because as realtors, that's all we can verify, right? With the geo warehouse, just as the name is good, but we don't physically contact them like how banks are now. Right? When they're making a huge transaction, and think about it, this is like the biggest transaction that you can ever, like financial transaction that you can ever have in most people's lives. Even like a call would be a step towards improving this situation, right? So I don't know how you guys think.
Let's just say the lawyer makes a call to the seller, but the seller is the fake seller,
The fake number.
like with the fake ID with the fake number.
Well, when you register with the the title insurance, I feel you should have a real phone number, a real email, and that's one way to avoid this scenario.
And the safe word.
Yeah, maybe.
Selling your house, what's the password?
Maybe a password. It could be your mother's maiden name.
Because the article
the safe
mentioned
word?
it's not just petty thieves doing this. This is organized crime.
This is organized.
Organized.
100%.
Like the people that are pretending to be the owners, they're just paid by the higher up people, right?
Yeah.
To pretend.
Yeah.
But there's people like the article mentioned that these funds are being funneled out of the country into like Bitcoin or something like that, so it's untraceable. All right, so this is pretty huge, and this is only 30 cases that we know of so far.
Might have been a lot already, to be honest.
Yeah.
So why don't we walk through it? What are the steps in this purchase transaction and closing transaction, where and how this fraud? Because first contact is the realtor, and as a realtor, we can check who owns the house through Geo Warehouse. We can verify the individual by checking their driver's license, and maybe a second piece of ID would be warranted nowadays.
Like the usual FinTrack stuff that we have to do
Correct.
before we list. Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
And then once the sale goes through, then the lawyer once it's signed off on both sides, then the lawyer gets involved, and the lawyer should verify who their client is.
But
Right.
they do. But they do.
They do.
Even
They
if
do.
even if lawyers verify, they can either verify in person, face to face, right, or through Zoom.
Yes.
Where you can
Yeah.
visualize to make sure you match the ID. But I still don't think that's sufficient.
I don't think that would work too, because let's say like a fake seller, he'd give you the fake ID with his picture.
Yes.
Even on the Zoom, it's going to be him on the Zoom.
Yes.
Of course, it's going to be verified because it's him, right?
So
how do like?
So actually, there is in Ontario. I can't speak for other provinces. There's a driver's license check where you can Google this, and if you go onto the province of Ontario driver's license check, you can enter the driver's license number to verify who the name of the holder of the driver's license. So if it's a fraud driver's license, they may not have the right driver's license number, and it won't come up with a result.
True.
So that's one way of doing it.
Technically, it would be pretty complicated, or it'd be a really complex transaction for the organized crime or the organization that's actually doing all this, because they would need to have inside contact within the government to change the title name on that property. They can also do the same thing with the driver's license.
Well, with the all you need is a lawyer. All you need is someone with access to the land titles to actually change the title.
Which is all
that
lawyers.
means all lawyers, exactly. So the titles part isn't hard, but it is quite complex because because they also have to fool the banks too, because the banks receive the funds that are paid out.
Yeah.
So it's quite complex, and that means you have to have a bank account with a bank.
Yeah.
So
With the fake IDs.
with a fake ID, yeah. So we're talking about like 3 levels of check from the realtor to the lawyers to the banks.
Right.
That has to be a failure at all points. So it's a complex
Well,
fraud.
Mackenzie's right. It's extremely organized, right?
Yeah.
It has to be.
I don't even know how going
Yeah.
forward to even check this.
Yeah.
No, I mean that's a good suggestion that Woody brought up about lawyers having actively verify the driver's license from a different organization. Like you said, online you can change it.
Yeah. We'll add a link to the driver's license in the video.
Yeah, we can
Yeah,
add it
definitely.
on the bottom.
Yeah.
I still feel like there should be more.
Yeah.
Some sort of
yeah.
oversight and also verification. We can't just right now. We're just relying on title insurance. Maybe investigators and police trying to track these people down and the funds, but it's not sufficient.
Yeah. Doesn't seem like we have like a concrete solution or method to do it thus far. Like even Toronto Real Estate Board, I'm sure they're baffled. Like they don't know what needs to be done. They're still discussing.
If there's a foolproof way of privacy, I would suggest doing biometric. That would be really awesome. When you're registering your property, you do a full biometric registration.
It might come to that.
It might come to
Yeah.
that. Or physically, I have a chip on my.
But that comes with like, my freedom, what's my rights,
That's what I mean. Like the privacy issue, all that comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure the powers that be between TREB, the banks, like imagine the banks are the ones that are losing out the most after the homeowners,
Yeah.
because they're the ones fronting the mortgages.
Right.
So the powers that be must be looking at it even before us.
Yeah. Yeah. Like we're kind of like, now that it hit the news, they're like, shoot, we're out hundreds of millions of dollars probably at this point. We gotta fix this problem.
Yeah.
Right? The banks are losing out a lot. Like homeowners might lose out one property. These guys are shelling out a lot of money to a lot of properties. And let's say like 1% of them are all fraud. They're losing out a
Do you
lot.
guys think the banks get bailed out by the government?
Well, they have insurance policies.
Yeah, they do.
They do. So
Yeah.
is it-
they're
Like, I mean,
covered.
who's paying this money though? Like, I mean, insurance is gonna dry up if this keeps going up.
Well,
And
It's
that
not
gives,
infinite. It's not
Yeah.
infinite.
And that gives the insurance companies and the banks more incentive
Yeah.
to find a way to combat this fraud.
yeah, they have to. They have
Yeah.
to.
do you think insurance premiums?
Yeah, they'll
gonna
go up.
for everyone?
They'll go up. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone gets.
They got to refill the pool somehow.
Yeah. So Richard, as you were mentioning previously, you have a 1+1. You're listing for what, 2550 downtown?
2550 downtown, and it's a 1-bedroom with 1 locker for 2550 that we're going to be listing it for,
And no parking, right?
and no parking.
Wait, where's
But
this? Where's
that
this?
This is downtown by Bathurst and Fort York.
Bathurst and Fort York. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Building
it's
will
just,
remain
you know what?
nameless.
Like, it sounds very insane because the prices have seemed to astronomically like shoot up, and it doesn't seem like there's an end to this price like rise. And honestly, like there's a lot of people that really cannot afford rental property today.
Yeah.
Even if they make $100,000, it's almost bare minimum that you need to get into the market.
Yeah, like I was saying last week, like I had a client $100,000 lost out.
Yeah.
Couldn't even get a 1+ den.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen that too. I had a landlord, and there was an applicant that had $250,000 in terms of income, right? And he said no.
What was the income?
250 plus.
But
Right.
wait, is he
He
only
was the
giving 2
landlord.
months?
He didn't-
Is he only
so-
giving 2 months up front?
Well, that's another thing. Legally you can only give first and
Yeah.
last, right?
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, landlords can afford to be picky because
Yeah,
it's
100%.
it's the best investment they've ever made, right? And they're going to protect it. But the average price of a 1-bedroom in Toronto now is $2,500.
One bedroom, just no parking, no locker. It's basically about $2,300
Yeah.
Okay,
at the base.
right.
At the base.
And that's like 500 square feet, 600.
Correct.
No,
yeah.
not even
It's
600.
not,
square feet, it's like-
some are even less than 500 square
right,
feet.
right.
Right. But that's the going rate right now downtown. You
Yeah,
know?
and I think what it is I don't think there's much a difference as like immediate like proper downtown and just a bit away from downtown. I think the price are the same. What you get for your money differs a little bit. I think that's all it is.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
the price is the same. Like I have clients that are looking at like 2,300, and there's not a lot downtown, but like there are like maybe like you get the like under 500 square foot units, and then you're still paying the same price a little bit more north for like 500 something square foot, but the price is the same though.
Yeah.
It's just
Correct.
getting bigger
Yeah.
space.
You just get more, a little more
Slight,
space.
very very slight, but it's
Yeah.
like
But
throughout,
even if you're comparing like some of the newer condos,
Yeah.
say Yonge and Eglinton, Yonge and Shepherd, Yonge and Finch, to even downtown, really they're not that much different,
they're not that much bigger,
right? It's just different city centers that you're
That's
moving
right.
into.
Yeah, that's
Do
right.
you have you guys heard? It's a new term for me, but a lot of the younger people, millennials, they tend to have a couple jobs, and they call it moonlighting, to be able to afford living in the city. Like they got 2 or 3 jobs at the same time, and this all started during, I guess, COVID, because you were able to work from home. What's your experience? Have you had that clients tell you this? And
Oh yeah. A lot of them are obviously doing some trades online, or they're doing some kind of side hustle on the internet while they're doing their full-time jobs, right? Actually, come to think of it, they might be taken away from their own full-time job to run their side hustle today.
don't name any sites.
And from a mortgage perspective, hey, as long as your side hustle has 2 years of record keeping there, we'll qualify you for that mortgage. No problem.
Oh, that's good. That's good to know.
Yeah, it's good
No,
to
but
know.
it is good to know. Right.
Because a lot of people do part-time stuff.
But it's hard. So let's say, for example, there's a lot of people who do sort of cash jobs, right?
Yes.
So how do they prove their income then? You know what I mean? Like,
That's true.
As long as you're putting it in your bank, we can actually look at your bank statements.
even if it's cash.
Yes, even if it's cash.
Okay.
But do you guys find that a lot of people are doing a lot more just cash jobs, but like more like Uber Eats, delivery, right? Do you find that
Well,
those are
those
more
are still taxable though. You still get a T4. You still
correct?
Get,
But it's just more of like a side hustle on their
True.
spare time, right? Do you find more people are doing that nowadays?
A lot of people doing all sorts of jobs.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, no one can really survive on a 50, 60K job anymore. Like, you have to make some other extra income on the side. Otherwise, you can't qualify even for rent. Right?
Yes.
That's the hard part.
I mean, but back in the 50s and 60s, every family could survive on one income. And then for the longest
Yeah.
time, 2 income was okay, dual income. Now it's like, well, a household should probably have like 4 incomes, 5 incomes.
And
That's where this came up.
and that's where it's going. More recently, we're seeing like 2 couples team up to even like rent or purchase places, like three names, 4 names on a mortgage application is starting to be
Yeah.
normal.
It's normalizing, yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of separate entrance, like they're kind of building their own little partnership,
Their own duplex.
Yeah.
their own duplex. But they should. I mean, we're heading to the right direction in terms of the government starting to legalize and intensifying some of the homes that we live in, and right, having duplex and
Yeah, definitely. With the new law that's going to be passing soon, with one property having 3 units, that's going to be very helpful for the rental situation. Definitely.
And great for homeowners too, because now they can afford to pay the rent with the rent rent increases, with their interest rate increases.
Sure.
Yeah, actually, before that comes legal, like my office, we have some in-house lawyers that successfully got a few couples into these agreements, like partnership agreements, where everyone agrees on the same terms. They have extra strategies, and it's actually great. Like some of the newer buyers are getting ahead of this trend.
So they're able to build equity with two or three other individuals. That's amazing.
Yeah. Do you think there's a maximum number of buyers that lawyers will say, hey, no, you can't have too many names?
Like 20 buyers in one property.
I think there are always ways to do it. For example, you could have a corporation purchase a property, right?
Yeah.
And there could be numerous
Like
shareholders to a
Right.
corporation, and that's another way multiple individuals can own one house.
Right.
Well, I mean, reason why I asked that, because there's a lot of newcomers. They're starting out as rental, but they all ultimately they'll come up with these questions about how we can buy, group buy.
Yes.
And I feel like this is the way we're headed to, because like I said, a couple incomes cannot qualify, then we have to add more more income to the pot.
Right. But let's go back to the rental thing we're talking about right now. So what have you guys seen with your clients that you've helped on the rental side, and how long would it take for them to go from renting to home ownership, right? So what's kind of the trend you're seeing in your own specific practices?
For newcomers.
Well, anyone coming to rent, right? They approach you, and we represent buyers and we represent tenants as well. But what is that like for you guys? From the time you sign a lease for them, you find them a nice place, and then the time they call you up and say, hey, I'm ready to buy.
Oh, that varies a lot, man. Because I've had some clients that are still renting, and they've been renting this entire time. They don't move every year, but like they'll stay there for a couple of years if their rent's good, and they're rent controlled. They're not incentivized to buy or to move out right away. They'll just keep saving or whatever it is, time the market, whatever it is that they use.
I guess that's the point I'm trying to say, is that with the rising increase in rental rates,
Yeah.
it's almost like you should just try to get a mortgage if you can.
I feel this topic could be a polarizing
Right.
topic, because depending on your strategy, if you were intending to buy, I feel if you were renting, to be healthy, 2 to 5 years should be a good sweet spot.
2 to 5 years. Okay.
To rent for 2 years, 3 years, and then jump in if you have enough savings.
Exactly.
As a newcomer, that would be a good strategy if you're set on buying. But if you're kind of renting and you find a right rental, like maybe if you're renting a co-op and the rent rate is grandfathered, maybe you keep renting there and then purchase another place if you're in a position to. Keep renting.
Yeah,
That
and
makes
there's
it
nothing
so-
wrong with renting. Some people just
absolutely.
prefer renting over owning. They enjoy that flexibility
That's right.
of not having that commitment, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I mean, there's another strategy here too. Let's say if you've been a renter and you've locked in a really good rate, who's to say that you can't buy property on the side and become a landlord and that'll pay for your rent? Like that's a good
Yeah.
strategy if you get into that sort of deal, right?
Yes. And actually, as of recent, rent to own is becoming more popular. It's a great way for individuals with possibly damaged credits to get into home ownership, and that's essentially for our viewers that don't understand what that is. Basically, you're paying, here's market rent, you're paying higher than market rent, and the additional that you're paying there is going towards your down payments to purchase the home that you're currently living in. And that benefits homeowners too, because you are now renting out to an individual that will take care of the property more because their intention is to own it. And if they default on it, the initial deposit that they gave to you to get into this contract to begin with, you get to keep that. So it could, in the current climate, rent to own could be a viable solution for both homeowners as well as new buyers.
But so in a case like this, because it's still kind of a new thing for the GTA, they get into a contract. Let's say, let's say they want to buy a house for, let's just say $1 million. So they agree on it, and then obviously the renter has to pay a little bit more every month. they in the contract it's like $1 million is the purchase price, quote unquote, right?
It's sometimes they'll put in a 2% increase per year, and then the tenant will have the option to buy it out at any time at that set rate. So in after 1 year it'll be $1,020,000, and after the second year it'll be
So it follows
$1,050,000. Let's
inflation.
say
It follows inflation.
it will be settled in the contract.
Yeah.
Well, I think what Woody may be referring to is the homeowner selling it as a rent to own.
Yes.
There are other options where the renter can actually find an investor to buy that property, because not every homeowner is going to want to go
Yes.
through that whole process of rent to own. So if that is an option, if people are looking into that option, rent to own, talk to your mortgage people, or talk to investors that are willing to work with you on setting up a rent to own, because they would buy it for you and then they would rent it back to you, right? At the agreeable contract.
Yes.
It's like a new type of mortgage almost. It
Yeah.
sounds like.
Vendor take back, that's another option, where if the homeowner has their house is paid off and they don't need the lump sum, but let's say the homeowner is 70 years old.
Yeah.
They've got still a good number of years, and maybe they just want to enjoy themselves. They don't want a home. They could travel the world, and they could get $5,000 a month mortgage. That's what the new homeowner, the buyer, could be paying them, and now they're getting $5,000 a month, and they can travel the world. Vendor take back mortgage is another option.
What are typical rates for that? Like, would they do that?
It would be at the current climate. You're looking about, it's negotiable, but you're looking at about 6-7% is very reasonable. It's not that much higher than the banks.
Yeah.
But still lower than a private mortgage.
Right.
Gives the seller cash flow, and lets the buyer into a property.
Exactly,
Like
yeah.
a win-win.
It's an attractive thing. I've seen it more and more with my clients too. They're always asking, do you do vendor take back? VTBs, right? So
Yes.
some do, some don't.
It's funny that you mentioned vendor take back, because it also I've seen some of the clients instead of selling it to a tenant, they would rent out their principal residence and downsize
Yeah.
to a condo.
Yes.
And that eases off their commitments to the bank, and also the rising interest rates. That's also a good strategy.
Actually,
Yeah.
maybe Woody can share some extra information here, because I've heard other people talk about getting like a RSP loan, right? Putting it into the RSPs for 90 days and then leveraging that as their down payment.
Yes.
Is that possible?
Yes. So it's actually the HBP. So it's the home buyer's plan. So what you can do is this strategy is valid to only new home buyers. That means somebody that hasn't purchased a home within the last 5 years. So what you can do is you can put money into your RSPs, and the soonest you can withdraw the money on the home buyer's plan is 90 days. So that allows you to actually purchase more home than just taking your after-tax money, because you put the money into an RSP. That means you get on your tax return, depending on the tax rate you're at the end of the year, you get a tax rebate. So you get that money back, and then but 100% of the money you put into the RSP, you get to withdraw in 90 days and use under the home buyer's plan as a down payment towards your new home. There's other criterias you have to qualify for as well, but that's a general idea, and much better than, like, let's say someone was making $100,000. Tax rate would probably be like, let's say 35-36%. That means that you make 100, you get to keep 65,000, let's say, and then you only have 65,000 to spend. But if you put 65,000 into your RSPs, which is actually above the allowable limit, I think it should be around like $30,000 right now. If you put in 30, you get a tax rebate of at 30%. That's about $9,000. So that means that you get to use that 30,000 you put in after 90 days, and at the end of the year, you get $9,000. It's great.
So would that also apply if you have two people that are first-time home buyers that are leveraging the same system or same program? Would that work?
Yes, if you have two buyers that are both new home buyers, they both get to use the program.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
So a lot of people who are renting right now that are looking to own, those are great options.
Oh yeah, if you're searching, put your money in your RSPs immediately. By the time you find something,
We have to
you'll be good to go.
clarify for the first time home buyer, it has to be first time buying globally.
yes, correct.
That's a
Good
big
point.
stipulation.
Good point. Yeah, it's a good,
Good point.
Absolutely.
And then that goes for GST and all the first time home buyer benefits. Because if you own a home in Asia somewhere, you sold it, it's no longer valid. You don't have any of the benefits.
Okay, lots of good information. So let's wrap it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Okay.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Oh wait. Well, actually, we still have to thank the vendor too.
Shout out to your good friend over here
your
for
buddy.
hooking us up.
So shout out to the homeowner and builder, Lee Engineering, for allowing us to use the space. We'll be showing you more of this gorgeous house soon enough. Stay tuned.